The ice drill screamed as it cut through another layer of frozen rock. Dr. Kethvar wiped the sweat from his scaled forehead and checked the readings on his scanner. They had been digging for 3 months on this dead world the locals called Terra 3, and still the metal readings got stronger the deeper they went. "Professor, you need to see this," called his assistant, Nixara, her voice tight with excitement. Kethvar rushed over to where she stood at the edge of their excavation. The drill had broken through into a massive hollow space. The scanner showed a chamber that stretched for kilometers in every direction. But that was not what made his 4 hearts race. The energy readings were off the charts. "This is impossible," he whispered. "These readings show active power sources. But this world has been dead for 50,000 years." The Zephyrian scientist activated his hover platform and descended into the darkness below. Emergency lights flickered on automatically as he moved, revealing corridors that stretched beyond sight. The walls were made of a material he had never seen before. It looked like metal, but felt warm to the touch and seemed to glow with its own inner light. Nixara followed close behind, her recording, equipment working overtime. "Professor, the architecture. It does not match any known galactic species. The proportions are all wrong. These corridors were built for beings much taller than us, but not as wide as the Corvin. And look at these symbols. Strange markings covered the walls. They were not carved or painted, but seemed to exist within the metal itself." Kethvar had studied the languages of 400 species, but these symbols meant nothing to him. They walked deeper into the facility, following the main corridor. The place felt alive somehow. Lights came on ahead of them and dimmed behind them. The air was fresh and clean, impossible after so many thousands of years. Their footsteps echoed in the vast space. "Professor?" Nixara stopped suddenly, pointing ahead. "Look." The corridor opened into a chamber so large their lights could not reach the far walls. But what filled the space made both scientists gasp. Row after row of crystalline containers stretched into the darkness. Each container was tall enough to hold a being twice their height, and inside each one, suspended in some kind of fluid, was a creature unlike anything in the galactic databases. The beings were tall and relatively thin, with pale skin and hair of various colors. They had only 2 arms, 2 legs, and their heads were smaller than most intelligent species. But there was something about them that made Kethvar's skin crawl. Even in sleep they looked dangerous. "How many are there?" Nixara whispered. Kethvar checked his scanner and nearly dropped it. "The readings show millions. This chamber extends for hundreds of kilometers underground, and Nixara, they are all alive." The crystals pulsed with a soft blue light, and complex machinery hummed quietly around each container. Whatever these creatures were, they had been in perfect stasis for an unimaginable amount of time. As they moved closer to examine one of the containers, alarms began to sound. Not harsh klaxons, but musical tones that seemed to come from everywhere, at once. The lights in the chamber grew brighter, and holographic displays materialized in the air around them. "We should leave," Nixara said, backing toward the entrance. "We should leave right now." But it was too late. The music grew louder, and one by one the containers began to open. Steam hissed as the crystalline shells split apart. The fluid inside drained away through hidden channels, and the pale creatures inside began to move. The first to emerge was a female with long, dark hair. She stepped out of her container as if she had only been sleeping for a few hours instead of 50 millennia. Her movements were fluid and graceful, but there was something predatory about the way she looked around the chamber. More containers opened. Males and females of various ages emerged, all with the same pale skin and strange body proportions. They spoke to each other in a language that sounded like music, their voices carrying clearly across the vast space. Kethvar activated his universal translator, but the device only produced static. Whatever language these beings spoke, it was not in any galactic database. One of the creatures noticed the 2 scientists. She was clearly a leader of some kind, wearing what looked like a uniform covered in symbols that hurt to look at directly. She approached them with confident steps, and when she spoke, the translation device suddenly worked. "I am Commander Sarah Chen of the Terran Expeditionary Fleet," she said, her voice calm but carrying an authority that made both scientists step backward. You are not human. What species are you, and what year is this by the old galactic calendar? Kethvar found his voice. I am Dr. Kethvar of the Zephyrian Academy. This is my assistant Nixara. The year is 2157 by the current galactic standard. What are you? The female's expression grew puzzled. 2157? That cannot be right. We entered stasis in the year 1834. That would mean... She paused, calculating. 323 years? That is far longer than planned. Excuse me, Nixara interrupted. Did you say 1834? That is impossible. The galactic calendar shows that as over 50,000 years ago. No species could survive in stasis for that long. Commander Chen stared at them for a long moment. Then she turned to speak with the other, humans in their musical language. Kethvar could see concern growing on their faces. Computer, Chen called out, and holographic displays appeared around her. Planetary scan, current date verification, species identification of local inhabitants. The displays filled with information faster than Kethvar could follow. But what he could see made no sense. Star charts that showed the galaxy as it was now, but overlaid with older charts that were completely different. Species files on every known race in the galaxy, but with notes and classifications that suggested intimate knowledge of their development. Computer confirms local data's 157 years since stasis initiation, Chen said quietly. All monitoring stations report normal function. Human colonies in the outer rim remain dormant as planned. She turned back to the two scientists. It seems we have slept longer than intended. Tell me, what do you know of the species called humans? Kethvar and Nixara exchanged glances. We have never heard of any species called humans, Kethvar said carefully. Are you perhaps from one of the lost colonies in the dark zone? Something flickered across Chen's face. You have never heard of humans. Computer, display current galactic political situation. New holographs appeared, showing the current borders of the major galactic powers. The Corvin Empire, the Zephyrian Academy, the Hegemony Alliance, and dozens of smaller species territories. All the major powers that had existed for thousands of years. Interesting, Chen said. It appears the galaxy has reorganized itself while we slept. Computer, are there any records of human presence in current galactic databases? Negative, Commander. No species matching human biological or technological signatures exist in current galactic records. However, archaeological data suggests widespread presence of unidentified advanced technology consistent with human origin across 17,000 star systems. Kethvar felt his legs grow weak. 17,000 systems? That would make your species the largest empire in galactic history, but the oldest civilizations only go back 30,000 years. Where did you come from? Commander Chen smiled, but it was not a comforting expression. We came from here, Doctor. From this galaxy. We have been here much longer than 30,000 years. She gestured to the awakening humans around them. We are the ones who built the hyperspace gates your ships use. We are the ones who seeded the dead worlds with life. We are the ones who guided your species through their early development. That is impossible, Nixara whispered. The hyperspace gates are ancient beyond measure. They were built by a lost civilization that vanished before recorded history. Not vanished, Chen corrected. We went to sleep. We had grown tired of managing the galaxy. It was time to let our children grow up without constant supervision. Her expression grew sad, though it seems we slept much longer than planned. More humans were awakening throughout the chamber. Kethvar could see that they were not all the same. Some wore uniforms like Chen, others were dressed in simple clothes, but all of them moved with the same fluid grace, and all of them seemed to understand technology that was far beyond anything the current galaxy possessed. One of the humans approached Chen and spoke rapidly in their musical language. Chen nodded and turned back to the scientists. Dr. Kethvar, I need you to contact your government. Tell them that the Terran Expeditionary Fleet has awakened and requests immediate communication with the current Galactic Authority. We need to understand what has happened in our absence. I will do that, Kethvar said, reaching for his communication device. But then he stopped. Commander Chen, what if they do not believe me? What if they think this is some kind of hoax? Chen gestured to the chamber around them, where thousands of humans were now awakening. Advanced machinery that had no equivalent in current technology hummed to life. Holographic displays showed star charts and data that no known species could possibly possess. Then they will learn the truth soon enough, she said. Computer, activate all Terran facilities in this sector. Begin awakening protocols for Colonial, Fleet 7, and send a message to the Deep Fleet in the Andromeda approach. Tell them the children have grown up and it is time to come home. The computer's response chilled both scientists to their bones. Acknowledged, Commander. 2000. Facilities activating across 17 sectors. Colonial Fleet 7 awakening protocols initiated. Deep Fleet contact established. They report successful completion of the great work and are beginning return journey. Estimated arrival time, 6 months local. Kethvar stared at Commander Chen. How many of you are there? Chen considered the question for a moment. In this galaxy? Perhaps 1 billion still in stasis. In the greater human empire? She smiled that unsettling smile again. That would be harder to calculate. We have been busy while we slept. As if to emphasize her words, the chamber began to transform around them. Walls reconfigured themselves. New corridors opened where none had existed before. The facility was rebuilding itself according to the needs of its awakened inhabitants. I suggest you contact your leaders quickly, Doctor, Chen said. The galaxy is about to remember why they used to pray to the Ancient Ones, and some of those memories will not be comfortable for anyone involved. Nixara grabbed Kethvar's arm. Professor, we need to leave now. But as they turned to go, they found their path blocked by more humans who had emerged from other parts of the facility. These ones were different. Taller, with strange modifications to their bodies that seemed to blend organic and mechanical elements. Their eyes glowed with an inner light that hurt to look at directly. Commander, one of them said, its voice carrying harmonics that made the translator struggle. The Guardian Fleet reports all border stations are functional. The dimensional anchors are stable and the Central Authority has been contacted. Central Authority? Chen asked, raising an eyebrow. The humans who chose not to sleep, Commander. They have been maintaining operations from the deep core. They are quite interested in meeting the species who have inherited the galaxy. Kethvar felt his world crumbling around him. Not only were these humans real, not only had they apparently ruled the galaxy in the distant past, but some of them had never left at all. Commander Chen looked at the two terrified scientists with something that might have been sympathy. Doctor, I truly am sorry about this. We never intended to hide from you. We simply wanted to give you time to develop naturally. But it seems our timing was off. She gestured to her awakening troops. Please understand we come in peace. We want to learn about what you have accomplished in our absence, but the galaxy belongs to humanity, and it is time for us to come home. As more alarms sounded in the distance and the facility continued, its impossible transformation, Kethvar finally managed to activate his communication device. Emergency signal to Galactic Command, he transmitted, his voice shaking. Code Black Archaeological Discovery. Request immediate council session. The Ancient Ones have returned. The response was immediate. Dr. Kethvar, please clarify. Did you say the Ancient Ones? Kethvar looked around at the awakening humans, their impossible technology, and their casual assumption that the galaxy belonged to them. Yes, he whispered, into the device. They are real, they are awake, and they are coming home. The emergency session of the Galactic Council had been called within hours of Dr. Kethvar's transmission. Representatives from 300 species filled the great chamber on Nexus Prime, their voices creating a cacophony of panic and disbelief. Chancellor Vextai of the Corvan Empire stood at the central podium, his massive frame radiating authority as he tried to maintain order. "Silence," he roared, his voice amplified across the chamber. "Dr. Kethavar will present his findings to the full council." The elderly Zephyrian scientist appeared on the holographic display, looking tired and frightened. Behind him, they could see impossible architecture and beings that matched no known species profile. "Honored Council," Kethavar began, his voice shaking. "What we have discovered on Terra 3 changes everything we know about galactic history. The beings calling themselves humans claim to be the original builders of our civilization's infrastructure. They have technology that surpasses our understanding and appear to have been in stasis for over 50,000 years. Counselor Yithmora of the Aquatic Alliance raised her tentacled appendage. "Doctor, you expect us to believe that a previously unknown species has been sleeping in our galaxy for longer than recorded history? This is clearly some kind of elaborate hoax." Before Kethavar could respond, the hologram flickered and changed. Now they were looking at Commander Sarah Chen, standing in what appeared to be a command center filled with displays and technology that made their most advanced systems look primitive. "Honored members of the current Galactic Council," Chen said, her translator working perfectly despite never having encountered their languages before. "I am Commander Sarah Chen of the Terran Expeditionary Fleet. I apologize for the informal introduction, but circumstances require immediate communication." The chamber erupted in chaos. Species representatives jumped to their feet, shouting in dozens of languages. Security forces moved toward the holographic projectors, thinking they could somehow stop the transmission. Chancellor Vextai slammed his ceremonial hammer on the podium. "How are you accessing our secure communication systems? Our networks are protected by quantum encryption that should be impossible to breach." Chen smiled politely. "Chancellor, your encryption protocols are based on mathematical principles we developed approximately 60,000 years ago. We appreciate that you have maintained and improved upon our original designs, but accessing them presents no difficulty for us." She gestured, and new holographic displays appeared around the chamber without permission from the Council's technical staff. Star charts, species biological data, historical records that predated the oldest known civilizations, all flowing past too quickly for most of the representatives to follow. "We understand this is difficult to accept," Chen continued. "Allow us to provide some context. Computer, display galactic development timeline, restricted access level." The displays changed to show the galaxy as it existed millions of years. Ego. Empty systems gradually filled with life as time accelerated. But the process was not natural. Worlds were systematically seeded with life, guided in their development, connected by massive engineering projects. "As you can see," Chen explained, biological and technological development in this galaxy did not occur naturally. Life was carefully cultivated and civilizations were guided along optimal development paths. The species you know as the Builders, or Ancient Ones, were human. Counselor Threkfin of the Silicon Collective spoke, his crystalline form chiming with agitation. "Even if we accept this claim, why reveal yourselves now? What do you want from us?" "We want nothing," Chen replied. "We woke up because our automated systems detected faster than light travel beginning in this sector. Our protocols required us to assess the situation and determine if intervention was necessary." The holographic displays shifted to show current, galactic borders and trade routes. But overlaid on the familiar maps were older territorial markings that covered far more space. "However, we have discovered a problem," Chen said, her tone becoming more serious. "Several species have expanded into systems that remain under human territorial claim. Additionally, some of our installations have been disturbed." "Chancellor." Vextai stood slowly. "Are you claiming ownership of occupied systems? Those worlds have been inhabited by member species for thousands of years." "Chancellor, those worlds were leased to developing species for temporary habitation. The lease agreements were recorded in the Central Archive. Though we understand your civilizations may have lost access to those records." Chen gestured again, and the displays showed detailed property records for thousands of star systems. Each world was listed with its original terraform date, species assignment, development goals, and lease duration. Many of the lease agreements had expired thousands of years ago. The chamber fell silent as the implications became clear. Nearly every major world in the galaxy was listed as human property. Dr. Kethavar's voice came through the communication link. Commander Chen, what exactly are you saying? Do you intend to reclaim these systems? That remains to be determined, Doctor. Our primary concern is understanding what has happened during our absence. We left clear instructions for the care and maintenance of developing species. Some of those instructions appear to have been ignored. New displays appeared, showing genetic analysis of various galactic species. The data revealed systematic modifications that had been made to their DNA over thousands of years. Modifications that enhanced intelligence, improved physical capabilities, and guided evolutionary development. For example, Chen said, highlighting the Corvin Empire's territorial space. The Corvin species was originally a simple herbivore species with limited cognitive ability. Genetic modifications introduced approximately 30,000 years ago enhanced their intelligence and gave them their current physical strength and military capabilities. Chancellor Vextai stared at the genetic data showing his species' artificial enhancement. You are claiming that my people are your creation? Not creation, Chancellor. Enhancement. You were already a proud and noble species. We simply helped you reach your full potential. Chen's tone remained pleasant, but there was something underneath it that made several representatives shift uncomfortably in their seats. The same is true for most species in this chamber, she continued. The Aquatic Alliance received respiratory modifications that allowed them to survive in varied atmospheric conditions. The Silicon Collective was given the ability to interface directly with quantum computing systems. The Zephyrian Academy received enhanced memory capacity and analytical thinking abilities. Counselor Yithmora spoke, her voice tight with emotion. You experiment on us? You treat us like laboratory subjects? We guided you, Chen corrected. Every modification was designed to help your species overcome natural limitations and achieve greater things. The results speak for themselves. You have built a thriving galactic civilization, but the representatives were not grateful. The knowledge that their most defining characteristics had been artificially imposed by an alien species was deeply disturbing. Whispered conversations began throughout the chamber as species delegates contacted their home governments. Chen seemed to sense the growing unrest. We understand this information is difficult to process. That is why we went into stasis in the first place. We knew that active management of developing species created dependence rather than growth. We wanted you to develop your own cultures and civilizations without constant oversight. But you never told us, shouted Representative Gixlar of the Trading Federation. You let us believe we had achieved everything through our own efforts. Because you did, Chen replied firmly. The modifications gave you tools, not achievements. Everything your civilizations have built, every advancement you have made, every act of courage or creativity or love, those came from you, not from us. Chancellor Vextai had been reviewing the genetic data on his personal display. Now he looked up with the expression of growing anger. Commander Chen, this data shows that the modifications to my species included behavioral changes. You made us more aggressive, more territorial. Our entire cultural identity is based on warrior traditions that you programmed into us. Chen's expression became guarded. The Corvin species was developing in a region of space with significant external threats. Enhanced defensive capabilities and military organization were necessary for survival. Defensive capabilities? Vextai's voice rose. You turned us into conquerors. Half the wars in galactic history have been started by Corvin expansion. And without those wars, 17 species would have been wiped out by external threats that you defeated, Chen countered. The Corvin Empire has served as the galaxy's shield for thousands of years. The chamber erupted in argument as species representatives began to understand how deeply their development had been manipulated. But their discussion was interrupted by new alarms from Dr. Kethavar's location. Commander, we are detecting massive energy signatures across the system, Kethavar reported. Dozens of objects are appearing on our sensors. They match no known ship designs. Chen nodded calmly. Those would be the other awakening facilities, Doctor. We have installations throughout this region. They are coming online as planned. On the displays, they could see massive structures materializing throughout the Terra 3 system. Not ships, but installations the size of small moons. They had been invisible to all galactic sensors, but now they revealed themselves in all their impossible glory. How many facilities do you have? Whispered Counselor Threkvin. In this sector? Perhaps 50 major installations. Across the galaxy? Chen considered the question. Computer, current status of Terran infrastructure? 2,300. And 47 major installations active. 16,000 minor facilities operational. All systems reporting normal function after extended dormancy period. The numbers hung in the air like a death sentence. The humans had more major installations than most species had ships, and these installations had been hidden in plain sight for 50,000 years. There is something else you should know, Chen said, her tone becoming more serious. The facilities awakening in this sector are only the caretaker installations. They were left behind to maintain basic operations while the main human population explored other opportunities. Other opportunities? Chancellor Vextai asked, though he seemed afraid of the answer. Other galaxies, Chancellor. Other dimensions. Other universes. Humanity outgrew this galaxy long ago. We have been busy while we slept. The communication link crackled, and a new voice came through. Male, older, with an authority that made even Chen straighten to attention. Commander Chen, this is Admiral Vasquez aboard the Deep Fleet flagship. We have received your awakening signal and are adjusting course to return to local space. Our exploration of the Magellanic Cluster is complete. We will arrive in your sector within 6 months. Chen smiled, but now there was something predatory in her expression. Acknowledged, Admiral. Please inform the fleet that we have encountered some interesting developments with the local species. Understood, Commander. Are hostile protocols required? The chamber held its breath as Chen considered the question. Finally, she responded. Not at this time, Admiral. The current galactic civilizations appear to be functioning within acceptable parameters. However, they seem to have forgotten their place in the greater order. Copy that, Commander. Deep Fleet out. The transmission ended, leaving the chamber in stunned silence. Chancellor Vextai finally found his voice. Commander Chen, what exactly is the Deep Fleet? Chen's smile widened. The Deep Fleet represents humanity's main military and exploration force, Chancellor. They have spent the last 50,000 years exploring distant galaxies and developing new technologies. They are quite eager to see what has become of their old home. She paused, letting the implications sink in. I should mention that the Deep Fleet consists of approximately 10 million vessels of various sizes, supported by artificial intelligences that have been evolving and improving themselves for 50 millennia. They have become quite impressive. The holographic displays showed star charts with trajectory lines leading from distant galaxy clusters toward their location. The scale of the operation was beyond anything the current galactic civilizations could comprehend. What do you want from us? Vextai asked quietly. That remains to be determined, Chancellor. For now, we simply want to observe and understand what you have become in our absence. The Deep Fleet will make the final decisions about how to proceed. Chen's image began to fade as she prepared to end the transmission. I suggest you prepare your people for significant changes in the galactic order. The children have had 50,000 years to play. Now the parents are coming home. The hologram disappeared, leaving the Galactic Council in chaos. As representatives shouted over each other and emergency sessions were called, one fact became clear to everyone in the chamber. The galaxy they thought they knew had never really belonged to them at all. 3 weeks had passed since Commander Chen's revelation to the Galactic Council, and the galaxy was beginning to tear itself apart. Not from human action, but from fear and the desperate decisions that fear breeds in civilized beings. Chancellor, Vextai stood in the war room of the Corvin Imperial Fleet, staring at tactical displays that showed the impossible. Across 17 sectors, Human installations were coming online. Not just the massive facilities they had already seen, but smaller structures hidden inside asteroids, within gas giant atmospheres, and even inside the cores of inhabited planets. How did we never detect them? General Korthmak asked, his scarred hands gripping the display table. We have surveyed every system in our territory dozens of times. Because they did not want us to, Admiral Thisara replied grimly. According to our science teams, these installations exist partially outside normal space. They only become detectable when they choose to be. The display shifted to show the Terra 3 system, where Dr. Kethvar continued to send increasingly disturbing reports. The human awakening facilities had transformed the dead world into something that defied understanding. Structures that reconfigured themselves, technology that seemed to operate by manipulating the fundamental forces of reality, and humans who moved through it all as if reshaping matter was the most natural thing in the universe. What is the status of our defensive preparations? Vextai asked. All fleet groups have been recalled to core systems, General Korthmak reported. The Hegemony Alliance has agreed to coordinate defense. The Aquatic Federation is mobilizing their deep space forces. Even the Silicon Collective has activated their war protocols. But Vextai could see the fear in his officers' faces. The combined galactic fleet was impressive by any historical standard, nearly 50 million ships of various classes. But the humans had casually mentioned 10 million vessels that had been improving themselves for 50,000 years. The mathematics were simple and terrifying. Sir, Communications Officer Venthali spoke up. We are receiving a transmission from Commander Chen. She is requesting permission to visit Nexus Prime for diplomatic discussions. Requesting permission? Admiral Thisara laughed bitterly, as if we could stop her if she wanted to come. Vextai studied the tactical displays for a long moment. The human installations were spread throughout galactic space, but they had made no aggressive moves. No weapons had been deployed, no territories claimed by force. The humans seemed content to simply exist, while the galaxy panicked around them. Accept the transmission, he decided, and have the council prepare for emergency session. The holographic display activated, showing Commander Chen standing in what appeared to be a garden. Impossible as it seemed, she appeared to be outdoors on the surface of Terra 3, which had been a frozen wasteland just weeks before. Now it showed blue skies, flowing water, and plant life that somehow thrived in conditions that should be uninhabitable. Chancellor, Vextai, Chen said, inclining her head politely. Thank you for accepting my communication. I hope we can resolve the current tensions before they lead to unfortunate consequences. Tensions? Vextai could not keep the anger from his voice. Your people have revealed that our entire civilization exists at your sufferance, that our species have been manipulated and modified to serve your purposes, and that a massive military force is approaching our territory. What did you expect our reaction to be? Chen's expression grew sad. I expected exactly this reaction, Chancellor. It is why we went into stasis rather than maintaining direct contact. The knowledge of our influence would always create resentment, no matter how beneficial that influence was. Beneficial? Admiral Thisara stepped forward. You turned my species into living weapons. The Corvan Empire has conquered 17 systems because you programmed us to be aggressive. And in doing so, you prevented the devourer swarms from wiping out 43 developing species. Chen replied calmly. The Corvan military tradition has saved more lives than it has cost. That was always the intent. New displays appeared around the hologram, showing historical data that no galactic civilization possessed. Invasion routes of extinct hostile species, projected population growth models, resource distribution analyses that covered millions of years. The scope of planning was staggering. You see, Chen continued, what your histories call random evolutionary development and natural galactic politics was actually a carefully orchestrated process designed to create a stable, thriving galactic community. Every war, every alliance, every technological breakthrough was guided to produce the optimal outcome for all species. She gestured, and the displays showed prediction models that matched galactic history with uncanny accuracy. The Aquatic Alliance's expansion into deep space provided early warning systems against extragalactic threats. The Silicon Collective's development of quantum computing enabled the hyperspace network that connects your civilizations. The Zephyrian Academy's research institutions laid the groundwork for peaceful cooperation between species. But it was all artificial, Vextai said. Our achievements, our cultures, our very identities, none of it was real. Chen shook her head firmly. Everything was real, Chancellor. We provided tools and opportunities. Your species chose how to use them. A Corvan warrior's courage in battle is not diminished because enhanced genetics made him stronger. A Zephyrian scientist's breakthrough is not less valuable because improved memory helped her remember the data. The argument was interrupted by urgent signals from multiple locations. Dr. Kethvar's voice came through the communication system, tight with panic. Emergency transmission from Terra 3. The humans are rebuilding the planet in real time. We are watching continental restructuring, atmospheric re-engineering, and ecosystem implantation happening in a matter of hours. The tactical displays shifted to show Terra 3 as seen from orbit. The frozen wasteland they had known was transforming before their eyes. Oceans appeared where there had been ice. Mountain ranges rose from plains. Clouds formed in the atmosphere as weather. Patterns established themselves. Impossible, whispered General Korthmak. Terraforming takes centuries. Even with our best technology, atmospheric modification alone requires decades. Chen nodded approvingly as she watched the displays. Our terraforming technology has improved considerably during our absence. What you are seeing represents about 50,000 years of advancement in planetary engineering. But the transformation of Terra 3 was not the only change occurring. Throughout galactic space, human installations were beginning to reveal their true nature. What had appeared to be simple monitoring stations were actually massive industrial complexes. Asteroid mining operations that had been running automatically for millennia. Energy collection systems that harvested power from stellar radiation and gravitational fields. How long has this been going on? Vextai asked, staring at the scope of hidden human activity. Since we entered stasis, Chen replied. We left automated systems to maintain basic operations and monitor galactic development. They have been quite busy. The displays showed production figures that dwarfed anything the current galactic civilization could achieve. Raw materials harvested from thousands of systems, energy production that exceeded the total output of all known civilization. Manufacturing capacity that operated at scales beyond comprehension. And now you have returned to claim it all, Admiral Tissara said bitterly. No, Chen said, surprising them. We have returned to see what our children have accomplished. The galaxy was never meant to be a human possession. It was meant to be a nursery for developing civilizations. She paused and her expression became more serious. However, there have been some concerning developments during our absence. Computer display current galactic threat assessment. New holographs appeared, showing star charts marked with areas of concern. Several regions of space were highlighted in red, indicating danger zones that the current galactic civilizations knew nothing about. The automated monitoring systems have detected 17 separate extragalactic incursions in the past 10,000 years, Chen explained. Each one was neutralized by our defense systems without galactic civilization ever knowing they occurred. The displays showed battle records and threat analyses, hostile species from other galaxies, mechanical swarms designed to consume all organic life, energy beings that fed on stellar cores. Each threat had been met and destroyed by automated human defenses. Additionally, Chen continued, our deep space sensors have detected a major incursion building in the void between galaxies, something significantly more dangerous than previous threats. The automated systems have determined that active human involvement will be required to address this threat. Chancellor Vextai felt his foreheart skip a beat. Are you saying that we are under attack? Not currently, but the threat is real and growing. The Deep Fleet's return is not just about checking on galactic development. They are coming to prepare for war. The implications were staggering. The humans were not returning as conquerors but as protectors. But that protection came with a price. Acknowledgement that humanity remained the ultimate authority in the galaxy. "What do you want from us?" Vextai asked. "Cooperation," Chen replied simply. "The coming threat will require the combined efforts of all galactic civilizations, human technology and resources, guided by the courage and creativity of the species we help develop. And if we refuse," Chen's expression grew cold, "then you will face the extragalactic threat alone. And Chancellor, I assure you that your combined fleets would not survive the first encounter." The communication link crackled with new transmissions from across the galaxy, reports of human installations revealing themselves in every major system, massive structures emerging from hidden locations, technology being activated that had lain dormant for millennia. "How much time do we have?" General Korthmak asked. "The current threat will not reach galactic space for approximately 18 months, Chen replied. "The Deep Fleet will arrive in 6 months to begin preparations. That gives us 12 months to integrate galactic defense forces with human military assets." Integration? Admiral Thisara spoke the word like a curse. "You mean subordination?" "I mean survival," Chen corrected. "The coming enemy has destroyed 17 galaxies. They have technology that rivals our own and numbers that exceed anything in known space. This is not a conflict that can be won through traditional military thinking." She gestured, and new displays showed tactical projections of the approaching threat. Swarms of ships numbered in the billions, weapons that could destroy entire star systems, energy signatures that suggested the ability to manipulate space and time itself. "Your species have 60,000 years of combined military experience," Chen continued. "Human technology has 50,000 years of advancement beyond your current level. Together, we might be able to stop them. Separately, we will all fall." The chamber fell silent as the magnitude of the situation became clear. This was not about human domination or galactic politics. This was about survival on a scale that no one had imagined. Chancellor Vextai looked around at his officers, seeing his own thoughts reflected in their faces. The choice was not between freedom and servitude. The choice was between cooperation and extinction. "What would this integration require?" he asked finally. Chen smiled, but it was a grim expression. "The establishment of unified command structures, sharing of tactical data, and coordination of resource allocation. Human commanders would oversee strategic planning, while galactic forces would handle tactical implementation. Under human authority," Vextai stated. "Under the authority of those with the most experience fighting this type of threat," Chen corrected. "Chancellor, we have been preparing for this war for 50,000 years. Your species have been preparing for 3 weeks." Before anyone could respond, new alarms began sounding throughout the command center. Emergency signals were coming in from across Corvin space. "Report!" Vextai barked. "Sir, long-range sensors are detecting massive energy signatures at the edge of the galaxy," came the panicked reply. "Whatever is out there, it is big, and it is moving toward us." Chen's expression grew even more serious. "Computer, confirm sensor data." "Confirmed. Vanguard elements of extragalactic threat have entered local galaxy cluster. Estimated arrival in local space, 14 months, 2 weeks." The timeline had just compressed dramatically. The enemy was coming faster than expected. "Chancellor," Chen said urgently, "I need your answer now. Will the Corvin Empire stand with humanity, or will you face this threat alone?" Vextai looked at the tactical displays showing impossible enemy numbers, then at the human installations that had been protecting his people without their knowledge for 50,000 years. The choice, when viewed clearly, was no choice at all. "The Corvin Empire will stand with humanity," he said finally. "But we do this as allies, not as subjects." Chen nodded approvingly. "Understood, Chancellor. Alliance protocols are acceptable. Computer, transmit integration schedules to all Corvin military assets. Priority Alpha." Integration schedules transmitted. Human liaison officers will arrive at all major Corvin installations within 72 hours. As the reality of the situation settled over the command center, Admiral Thisara asked the question that was on everyone's mind. Commander Chen, do we actually have a chance of winning this war? Chen was quiet for a long moment, studying the threat projections. Admiral, she said finally, ask me that question again when the Deep Fleet arrives. The answer may surprise you. 6 months had passed since the emergency alliance between humanity and the galactic civilizations. What followed was the most intensive period of military preparation in recorded history, and also the most humbling experience any of the galactic species had ever endured. Admiral Thisara stood in the command center of the newly constructed Defense Platform 7, watching displays that showed the impossible scope of human military preparation. The platform itself was a marvel that defied everything she thought she knew about engineering. Built in just 3 months using human technology, it was larger than most space stations and more heavily armed than entire fleet groups. Status. Report, she called to her mixed staff of Corvin officers and human liaisons. Lieutenant Commander Torres, one of the human integration specialists, looked up from her displays. Admiral, all 17 defense platforms are now operational. The Galactic Defense Fleet has completed integration training and is reporting ready status. Human manufacturing facilities have delivered the requested equipment upgrades to all participating species. Thisara nodded, but she still felt overwhelmed by the scale of the operation. In 6 months, the humans had transformed the military capabilities of the entire galaxy. Ships that had been cutting-edge technology were now equipped with weapons and defenses that seemed like magic. Sensors that could detect targets across multiple dimensions. Shields that redirected energy into parallel universes. Weapons that could manipulate time and space. "What is the status of the Deep Fleet?" she asked. Torres consulted her displays. Admiral Vasquez reports that the Deep Fleet will arrive in local space within 48 hours. Current formation includes 12 million vessels of various classifications. 12 million ships. The number still made Thisara's head spin. The combined galactic fleet numbered 50 million vessels, but the humans had casually mentioned that their Deep Fleet represented only their mobile forces. The total size of human military assets remained classified at levels so far above her clearance that she was not even allowed to ask about them. "Admiral," called Captain Nexthul from the tactical station, "we are receiving priority transmissions from multiple sectors. The advanced elements of the extragalactic threat have been detected by our outer sensor networks." The main display shifted to show the galaxy from above, with red markers indicating enemy positions. Thisara felt her blood chill as she saw the scope of the approaching threat. The enemy was not approaching from one direction but from all sides, surrounding the galaxy in a sphere of hostile contacts. "Computer, display threat assessment," Torres commanded. New data flooded the screens. Enemy ship counts in the billions. Energy signatures that exceeded anything in known physics. Movement patterns that suggested coordination across impossible distances. And worst of all, the complete absence of any communication attempts or demands for surrender. They are not coming to conquer, Thisara realized. They are coming to destroy everything. Torres nodded grimly. Human intelligence analysis confirms this assessment. The enemy appears to be what our xenobiologists classify as a consumption species. They destroy civilizations to harvest resources for their own expansion. How many civilizations have they destroyed? 17 confirmed galaxy-scale exterminations. Estimated total population loss exceeds 4 trillion sentient beings. The numbers were beyond comprehension. Entire galaxies full of life, wiped out by this approaching enemy. And now they were coming here. "Priority signal from Terra 3, the communications officer announced. "Commander Chen is requesting immediate conference with all military commanders." The holographic display activated, showing Commander Chen standing in what appeared to be a command center that dwarfed anything the galactic civilizations had ever built. Behind her, Thisara could see displays showing tactical information from across the galaxy and beyond. "Admiral Thisara, thank you for accepting the transmission," Chen said. "I'm afraid I have both good news and bad news regarding our defensive preparations." "Please proceed, Commander." "The good news is that the Deep Fleet will arrive ahead of schedule. Admiral Vasquez has pushed the fleet to maximum velocity and will enter local space in 36 hours. The bad news is that our long-range sensors have detected the main enemy force. New displays appeared showing sensor data that made the previous threat assessment look optimistic. The enemy main force contained not billions but trillions of ships, supported by mobile installations the size of planets and weapons platforms that generated energy signatures visible from other galaxies. "How is this possible?" Thaisara whispered. "No civilization could build a force of that size." "Not one civilization," Chen agreed. "But 17 destroyed civilizations with their resources and populations converted to military assets could certainly produce numbers like this. The enemy appears to use conquered populations as raw material for their war machine." The implications were horrifying. Every destroyed civilization added to the enemy's strength, creating a snowball effect that made them stronger with each victory. "What are our chances?" Admiral Thaisara asked, though she was afraid of the answer. Chen was quiet for a moment. "That depends on several factors that remain classified. However, I can tell you that the Deep Fleet is not coming here just to fight a defensive war. Admiral Vasquez has developed some interesting strategies." Before Thaisara could ask for clarification, new alarms began sounding throughout the command center. Emergency signals were coming in from the outer sensor networks. "Report," she barked. "Admiral, we are detecting massive space-time distortions at grid reference 7734 Alpha," the sensor operator called. "Energy signatures match Deep Fleet transit protocols." The main display shifted to show the designated coordinates. Space itself was bending and twisting as something unimaginably large forced its way through dimensions that should not exist. Reality rippled and warped as the impossible became routine, and then they appeared. The Deep Fleet was nothing like what any galactic species had imagined. These were not ships in any conventional sense. They were structures that seemed to exist partially outside normal space, their forms shifting and changing as they moved through dimensions that hurt to look at directly. The smallest vessels were larger than most space stations. The largest defied measurement, their forms extending through multiple layers of reality simultaneously. And there were millions of them, appearing from nowhere and everywhere as they emerged from whatever impossible method of travel humanity had developed during their 50,000-year absence. "Sweet ancestors," whispered Captain Nexthul. "How do they even move through normal space?" Commander Torres looked up from her displays with something that might have been amusement. "They don't. The Deep Fleet operates primarily in higher dimensional space. What you are seeing are just the parts that intersect with our reality." The communication system activated, and a new voice filled the command center. Male, carrying an authority that made even Commander Chen seem junior by comparison. "This is Admiral Elena Vasquez of the 1st Terran Fleet. I am assuming command of all defensive operations in this sector. All human and allied forces will coordinate through my flagship. Prepare for immediate tactical briefing." The holographic display shifted to show Admiral Vasquez, and Thaisara immediately understood why she was in command of the Deep Fleet. There was something different about her compared to the humans they had encountered so far. Her eyes held depths that suggested experiences beyond normal comprehension, and her movements carried a precision that spoke of enhanced capabilities. "Admiral Thaisara," Vasquez said, inclining her head politely, "I have reviewed your integration progress with our forces. Impressive work under difficult circumstances." "Thank you, Admiral. We have done our best to prepare for the coming conflict." I'm sure you have. However, I must inform you that the conflict has already begun." New displays appeared showing real-time tactical data from across the galaxy. The outer sensor networks were reporting contact with enemy advance forces, not the main fleet but scout elements that were already engaging human automated defenses. "The enemy has begun probing our defensive perimeters," Vasquez explained. "Their advanced scouts are testing our capabilities and mapping our defensive positions. We estimate approximately 72 hours before they begin their main assault." "What are your orders?" Thaisara asked. Vasquez smiled, and there was something predatory in the expression that reminded Thaisara that these humans had spent 50,000 years becoming something more than they had been. "Admiral, you and your forces will defend the inner systems and protect civilian populations. This is critical work that requires the courage and dedication your species are known for. And the Deep Fleet? We will be handling the more complex aspects of this war. Before Thaisara could ask what that meant, the tactical displays began showing something impossible. Human ships were disappearing from their positions and reappearing near enemy formations. But they were not engaging in conventional combat. Instead, they seemed to be doing something to space itself around the enemy positions. "Admiral," she called to Vasquez, "what exactly are your ships doing out there?" Vasquez consulted her displays before responding. "We are implementing what we call dimensional warfare, Admiral. The enemy has significant, among other techniques," Vasquez confirmed. "The Deep Fleet has had 50,000 years to develop tactics that do not rely on conventional physics. The enemy may have overwhelming numbers, but they still operate within normal space-time." As if to demonstrate her point, more enemy formations disappeared from the tactical displays. Some were translated into parallel universes. Others were trapped in temporal loops. A few were simply erased from existence by weapons that attacked the fundamental forces holding matter together. "This is impossible," Captain Nexthol whispered. "No species should have this kind of power." Commander Torres looked up from her station. "Captain, humanity stopped being just a species about 40,000 years ago. What you are seeing represents the evolution of an entire civilization beyond the normal limitations of physics. But even as the human forces demonstrated their impossible capabilities, the enemy was adapting. The tactical displays showed new enemy formations approaching with different energy signatures and movement patterns. "They are learning from each engagement," Admiral Vasquez noted with approval. "Impressive adaptation speed. Computer, implement. Protocol 7. Protocol 7 confirmed. Activating Quantum Consciousness Network. All Deep Fleet vessels now operating under collective tactical intelligence." The nature of the battle changed again. Now the human ships moved with perfect coordination, as if controlled by a single vast intelligence. Their attacks became more sophisticated, targeting not just enemy ships but the logical structures that allowed the enemy fleet to function as a coordinated force. "Admiral," Thaisara said to Vasquez, "what exactly has humanity become during your absence?" Vasquez considered the question for a moment. "We have become what was necessary to protect the galaxy, Admiral. The universe is a dangerous place, and someone needs to stand guard against the darkness." The tactical displays showed more enemy formations being eliminated, but also revealed the true scope of the approaching threat. For every enemy scout formation destroyed, 10 more appeared to take its place. "However," Vasquez continued, "this is only the beginning. The main enemy force will arrive in approximately 60 hours, and they will be considerably more difficult to eliminate than these advance elements." "What do you need from us?" Thaisara asked. "Exactly what you have been doing, Admiral. Protect the civilian populations, maintain defensive positions, and trust that we know what we are doing." Vasquez paused, and her expression became more serious. "But I must warn you that the coming battle will test the limits of what is possible. The enemy has resources and capabilities that rival our own. This will not be an easy victory." The communication ended, leaving the Galactic Command staff to contemplate the impossible situation they found themselves in. They were allied with beings who could rewrite the laws of physics at will, facing an enemy that had destroyed 17 galaxies. "Admiral," Captain Nexthul said quietly, "do you think we can actually win this?" Thaisara looked at the tactical displays showing human ships performing impossible maneuvers against an enemy that defied comprehension. "Captain," she replied, "I think we are about to find out what happens when gods go to war." The main enemy fleet arrived 72 hours later, and with it came the revelation that everything the galactic civilizations thought they knew about warfare was hopelessly primitive. Admiral Thaisara watched from Defense Platform 7 as reality itself became a battlefield. The enemy did not simply appear in normal space. They tore holes in the fabric of existence and poured through like a flood of living darkness. Their ships were not built so much as grown, organic-looking structures that pulsed with alien life and radiated energy signatures that made nearby stars flicker. "Sensor readings are off the charts," reported Lieutenant Commander Torres, her human composure cracking slightly. The enemy main force consists of approximately 4 trillion individual units, but they are operating as a single organism. Neural network connections span the entire fleet. 4 trillion ships operating as one mind. The scope was beyond anything anyone had imagined, even after months of preparation. Status of Galactic Defense Forces, Thaisara asked. All positions report ready. The Corvin battle groups are in defensive formation around the core worlds. The Aquatic Alliance, Deep Space. Platforms are operational. The Silicon Collective has activated their quantum defense networks, but even as Torres reported the readiness of their forces, everyone in the command center knew that conventional tactics would be useless against this enemy. The Galactic Fleet's 50 million ships seemed laughably small compared to the approaching horde. Signal from Admiral Vasquez, the communications officer announced. The holographic display activated, showing Vasquez standing in what appeared to be the center of a vast sphere of light. Around her, impossible geometries shifted and changed as the Deep Fleet prepared for battle. Admiral Thaisara, Vasquez said, her voice carrying harmonics that suggested she was speaking across multiple dimensions simultaneously. The enemy main force has fully committed to this assault. All available enemy resources from their 17 conquered galaxies are being brought to bear. What are your orders? Maintain defensive positions and protect civilian populations. What happens next will determine the fate of not just this galaxy but possibly the entire local universe cluster. New displays appeared, showing tactical projections that hurt to look at directly. The battle would not be fought just in normal space, but across multiple dimensions simultaneously. The Deep Fleet was deploying weapons and strategies that operated on scales of reality that most species could not even perceive. Admiral, Thaisara said carefully, what exactly is humanity's plan? Vasquez smiled, and for a moment her form seemed to flicker between different possible versions of herself. We are going to do something that has never been attempted before, Admiral. We are going to end this cycle of galactic destruction permanently. Before Thaisara could ask what that meant, the battle began. The enemy fleet struck with the force of a collapsing star. Their weapons did not simply destroy targets. They erased them from existence, removing all trace that they had ever been. Entire sections of space became empty voids where matter ceased to function according to normal physics. But the Deep Fleet was ready. Human ships began implementing tactics that defied every known law of science. Some vessels split themselves across multiple timelines, fighting the same battle in dozens of parallel realities simultaneously. Others phased through higher dimensions, appearing behind enemy formations before the enemy could react. Computer, display tactical overview, Torres commanded. The main screen showed a representation of the battle that was constantly shifting as the engagement moved between dimensions. Enemy formations that seemed solid would suddenly become translucent, as human forces attacked them through alternate realities. Human ships that appeared to be destroyed would reform themselves from quantum probability clouds. They are fighting in 17 dimensions simultaneously, Torres reported, her voice filled with awe. The Deep Fleet is using the enemy's own dimensional technology against them. But the enemy was adapting faster than anyone had expected. Their organic ships began reconfiguring themselves, developing new weapons and defenses in real time. Worse, they were learning from every human tactic, becoming more sophisticated with each exchange. Admiral, called Captain Nexthul from the sensor station, I am detecting massive energy buildup in the enemy core formation. Power levels are exceeding theoretical maximums. The displays showed something that made everyone in the command center step back involuntarily. The enemy fleet was converging into a single massive structure, combining their individual ships into something that dwarfed planets. Energy crackling between the merged vessels created patterns that hurt to look at, and space itself began to warp around the growing formation. They are building a galaxy killer, Torres whispered. The combined mass and energy of their entire fleet focused into a single weapon. Admiral Vasquez's voice came through the communication system, but now it carried overtones that suggested she was no longer entirely human. All Allied forces withdraw to minimum safe distance. The Deep Fleet is implementing final protocol. Final protocol? Thaisara asked, but Torres was already working frantically at her console. All galactic forces emergency withdrawal to Epsilon perimeter. Torres broadcast. Move now. The Galactic Defense Fleet began pulling back from the battle zone, but many of the officers were confused and frightened by the sudden retreat order. Admiral, Captain Nexthul called urgently. What is final protocol? Torres looked up from her displays, her face pale. Something that was supposed to never be used. The Deep Fleet is going to attempt to rewrite the fundamental laws of physics in this region of space. The implications were staggering. Changing the basic rules that governed reality itself was beyond anything any civilization had ever attempted. Can they actually do that? We are about to find out. On the tactical displays, the Deep Fleet was reconfiguring into formations that existed across multiple dimensions simultaneously. The human ships were no longer recognizable as vessels. They had become geometric patterns of pure energy and consciousness that spanned impossible distances. And then it began. Reality started to change. The laws of physics that had governed the universe since its creation began to alter in the space around the enemy fleet. Gravity became optional. Time flowed in directions that had never existed before. Matter and energy became interchangeable at the quantum level. The enemy's galaxy killer weapon, which had been building toward a discharge that could destroy entire star systems, simply stopped working. The physical laws that allowed it to function no longer applied in local space. Impossible, breathed Captain Nexthul. They are rewriting the universe. But the enemy was not helpless. Their organic ships began adapting to the new physical laws faster than should have been possible. They were evolving in real time, developing new forms of existence that could function under the altered conditions. Admiral Vasquez's voice came through the communication system again. But now she sounded like she was speaking from across vast distances of space and time. The enemy is more adaptable than projected, implementing contingency measures. All reality anchors to maximum output. Reality anchors? Thaisara asked. Torres was working at her console, pulling up classified files that she should not have had access to. Devices that stabilize local space-time. The Deep Fleet has been placing them throughout the galaxy for the past 50,000 years. They prevent reality from becoming completely unstable during dimensional warfare. New displays showed the locations of the reality anchors, massive installations hidden in the cores of stars, in the hearts of black holes, in the spaces between galaxies. There were millions of them, creating a network that spanned known space. The entire galaxy is an engineered system, Thaisara realized. The humans did not just guide our development, they rebuilt the fundamental structure of space-time itself. But, even with the reality anchors stabilizing local space, the battle was reaching a critical point. The enemy had adapted to the new physical laws and was beginning to press their attack again. Their ships were becoming something that existed beyond normal matter and energy, pure predatory consciousness given form. Admiral, Torres called urgently. I am reading massive power fluctuations in the reality anchor network. The system is approaching overload. If the reality anchors failed, the changed physics in the battle zone would spread throughout the galaxy. Every star system, every planet, every living being would be subject to the unstable physical laws that the Deep Fleet had created. Admiral Vasquez's image appeared on the holographic display, but she no longer looked entirely human. Her form seemed to exist in multiple dimensions simultaneously, and her voice carried harmonics that suggested vast intelligence operating across scales of time and space. Admiral Thaisara, I need you to understand something, she said, her words carrying weight that seemed to press against reality itself. The battle we are fighting is not just about this galaxy. The enemy represents a threat to the fundamental structure of existence itself. New displays appeared, showing data that extended far beyond the local galaxy cluster. The enemy's pattern of destruction was not random. They were systematically eliminating civilizations that had developed certain types of advanced technology. Appears to destroy them. They are keeping the universe primitive and limited. What are you saying? I am saying that this is not just a war for survival. This is a war for the right of consciousness to grow beyond its current limitations. The enemy fleet was adapting again, their ships becoming more abstract and dangerous. But now the Deep Fleet was implementing something new. Not just changing the laws of physics, but creating entirely new forms of existence. Final option activated, Vasquez announced, beginning consciousness translation protocol. The nature of the battle changed completely. Instead of ships fighting ships, it became a conflict between different forms of awareness itself. The Deep Fleet was no longer using weapons. They were using pure thought and will to reshape reality around the enemy. They are fighting with ideas, Torres whispered. The Deep Fleet has become pure consciousness, and they are battling the enemy on the level of fundamental concepts. The enemy responded by also abandoning their physical forms, becoming something that existed as hostile patterns of thought and destruction. The battle became a conflict between different visions of what reality should be. And slowly, impossibly, the Deep Fleet began to win. The enemy's ships started to dissolve as the ideas that held them together were defeated by superior concepts. Their weapons ceased to function as the mathematical principles behind them were rewritten. Their entire fleet began to collapse as the consciousness driving it was overwhelmed by humanity's transcendent awareness. But victory came at a cost. The Deep Fleet, in becoming pure consciousness, had moved beyond their ability to exist in normal space-time. They were winning the battle by evolving past the point where they could remain in this universe. Admiral Vasquez, Thaisara called urgently. What happens to you after this battle? Vasquez's image flickered, becoming more translucent as she spoke. We will move on, Admiral. This universe is no longer large enough to contain what we have become, but do not worry, we are leaving the galaxy in good hands. Whose hands? Yours. And all the other species we helped develop. You are ready to inherit what we built. The enemy fleet was disintegrating rapidly now, their ships breaking apart as the hostile consciousness that drove them was defeated. But something else was happening. The reality anchors throughout the galaxy were beginning to activate in a new configuration. Computer, display galaxy-wide status, Torres commanded. The displays showed an incredible sight. Throughout galactic space, human installations were activating and then transferring themselves to the control of local species. Corvan military bases were receiving complete technical databases and command authorities. Zephyrian research stations were being gifted with scientific knowledge that would advance their civilization by thousands of years. Every species was inheriting technology and knowledge appropriate to their development level. We are giving you everything, Vasquez said, her form now barely visible. All our technology, all our knowledge, all our responsibilities. The galaxy is yours to protect and guide. But we are not ready, Thaisara protested. We do not have your abilities or your wisdom. You have something we lost long ago, Vasquez replied. You have the ability to grow and change. We became so advanced that we stopped being able to truly evolve. You will face new challenges and develop new solutions. You will become something we never could. The last of the enemy fleet disappeared, erased not by weapons but by the simple fact that their existence had become incompatible with the new reality the Deep Fleet had created. The threat is ended, Vasquez announced. Not just here but across all realities where this enemy existed. We have eliminated them from every timeline and dimension. What about other threats? Other enemies? Vasquez smiled as her image faded. There will always be new challenges, Admiral, but you will face them together as we once did. The galaxy is in your hands now. The hologram disappeared, and with it, the last trace of the Deep Fleet. Throughout galactic space, human installations continued transferring themselves to local control, but the beings who had built them were gone, moved on to forms of existence beyond physical reality. Admiral Thaisara stood in the command center, looking at displays that showed a galaxy fundamentally transformed. The species that had fought the enemy together now found themselves inheritors of technology and knowledge beyond their dreams. But more importantly, they had proven that they could work together when survival depended on it. "Admiral," Captain Nexthul said quietly, "what do we do now?" Thisara considered the question as she looked at the tactical display showing the fleet formations of dozens of species, all working together in unprecedented cooperation. "We do what they trained us to do, Captain. We protect the galaxy. We help each other grow, and we prepare for whatever challenges come next." She activated the fleet-wide communication system. "All galactic forces, this is Admiral Thisara. The immediate threat has been eliminated, but our work is just beginning. We have inherited not just technology and knowledge, but responsibility for protecting and nurturing life throughout the galaxy." She paused, looking around at the mixed staff of different species working together in the command center. "The humans guided us to this point, but now we must find our own way forward. Not as separate species competing for resources, but as partners in the greatest endeavor in galactic history. Building a civilization worthy of the trust placed in us." Responses came back from across the fleet. Corvin battle groups, aquatic, Alliance deep space platforms, Silicon collective quantum networks, and dozens of other species, all confirming their commitment to the new galactic order. The age of human dominance was over. The age of galactic cooperation had begun. And in the months that followed, as the species of the galaxy learned to use their inherited technology and took on their new responsibilities, they began to understand something the humans had known all along. The greatest victory was not defeating an enemy, but becoming something worth protecting.